to our second YouTube series live with internationally known experts. I am waiting for my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Alexandra Solomon. And while we're waiting for her, let me just make sure that she has everything she needs. Lovely. Okay, wonderful. So while we're waiting for Dr. Solomon, I'm going to read you a little bit of her bio to make sure that you know who we are talking to today. Oh, there she is. Hello, hello.
Good morning, Dr. Sarah.
Good morning. Lovely to be here with you today. How are you?
Well, I'm wonderful now. How are you?
I'm great. I look forward to our conversation. Always looking forward to our conversations.
Oh, no, me too. Me too. I
Thank
don't
you.
think that I don't know that I've ever been live on YouTube. So thank you for introducing me to a new experience.
Absolutely. This is my kind of first attempt at having this series too. But if you don't mind, I was just going to tell people a little bit about you and why we're going to talk about the rituals of the daily loving relationship, right? So besides being my very good friend and loving friend, Dr. Alexandra Solomon is one of the most trusted voices in the world of relationships, and her work on relational self-awareness has reached millions of people around the world. Dr. Solomon is a licensed clinical psychologist at the Family Institute at Northwestern University, and she's a faculty of the School of Education and Social Policy at Northwestern University as well. One thing that I wanted to highlight for people is your podcast, Reimagining Love, wherever that people get their podcast. Also, I wanted to highlight that if they go to your website, you have 3 courses that are listed here. One is for singles and dating and single again. One is for rebuilding trust after a breach of trust. And then the other one is Intimate Relationships 101 with everything that you need to know. So I just wanted to highlight those, and we're going to put the information as they do in YouTube down below, the description as well, so people can go and find you. So welcome.
Thank you, thank you. And it is worth noting that you are one of very few people. You, Emily Nagoski, and my friend Vienna Farron are the only 2-time guests ever on Reimagining Love. So you are in that sacred circle of repeat guests on the Reimagining Love show, because I just treasure our conversation and collaboration. And I think that you occupy a very similar space of just being, you're somebody who's been doing this work for many, many years and has really garnered, you have a difference between you and I is that you really have garnered a global, like a true global following and global, and you so easily kind of talk between cultural realms, and you do such a beautiful job of always keeping our intimate relationships in that larger cultural context, and help us understand the role and the power of loving in this place on the globe versus that place on the globe versus that place on the globe. And so that I know is something that you are just really treasured and held in the warmest of regard for in our field.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you. Very sweet of you. So Alexandra, actually, I have your new book in my hand.
Well, I don't have yours because I'm on the road. I'm in Miami, Florida. So I did not bring Love by Design with me, but it usually is not far from my reach. But I'm so glad that it's so nice to see my book in your hands, at least.
Yes, absolutely. And I cherish it. So I just opened, so for everybody who doesn't know Alexandra's new book, so there are 365 relational self-awareness practices to help your relationship, right? So I actually went right into February 15th because that's when we are recording, right? And what I find myself reading here is love will grow your ass up.
Okay.
So that's a bold one, right?
That's a sassy one.
Yeah, it's a sassy one. So I wonder if you can walk us through that. And then we're going to go over the relational self-awareness questions that you have for today, which I find very meaningful and thoughtful. So do you mind walking us through And then we'll go to other
Love,
questions.
how exactly love grows our asses up.
Yeah, I think a lot of people out there, they're like, oh yeah, no kidding.
That's right. It's really kicking my ass is more like it. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, this is, you and I are gathered today to kind of talk about the daily rituals, because that is, it's a theme in my new book, Love Every Day, is a daily practice. I always, my whole life, have loved these one a day kinds of books. I think it's such a generous thing for an author to do, to give you like a little kind of tidbit each day. And so it's been so fun to be now the author, who is kind of offering people this. And I know that it aligns very well when I think about your 6 pillars in the emergent love model. One of the pillars is loving behavior. And I think that is
Yes.
so, it's no coincidence that when you did your research and you really kind of built your model from the ground up, one of the things that your couples who are thriving in their relationships showed you is that love is a verb, love is a behavior. And so we do need those daily, whether it's a kick in the booty or a whisper in the ear, of just like, okay, how are you showing up today? Because just checking the box that you're married, or just, putting a ring on a finger, that's not love. Love is in the space between. And so I love this. I love that you and I are going to kind of focus on the ritual. So if a couple were to sit down today and work on this February 15th entry, this idea is that love grows us. I think I think sometimes, especially when I'm talking to young people, and you tell me, there's an idea that like I have to just do my work and then I'll be good for a relationship. Like if I do the therapy, listen to the podcast, read Love by Design, then I'll be good. And then I can date and have a kind of easy breezy soulmate relationship. And so this prompt today is a reminder that actually, like, I'm here for it. I'm here for you working on yourself, stepping out of the dating world, perhaps doing some healing. But the process of falling in love, the process of building trust, the process of getting to know somebody is going to take you back into your issues, your core wounds. So you can't be done, because your partnership is going to keep pushing and stretching you. I'm in year 26 of my marriage. Todd and I joined him on a business trip, because I can do that now because we're empty nesters. My gosh, love has grown my ass up this week. We're just, we haven't done a lot of just 2-person travel together. And so it is a forever practice of, okay, what is love showing you today? What are you being confronted with today? And how can you meet it as a challenge and invitation, rather than pushing it away or making it your partner's fault or something like that?
Beautifully said. And if I may go through the questions for people who don't
Sure.
have the book just yet, and please get out there and get the book, because this is like, it could be on your nightstand, and then will be the daily check-ins, so to speak, right? So the first question is, what are you wanting, needing in this moment? How is your partner experiencing you in this moment? This is the second question. The third one, Dr. Alexandra offering, is what does this dynamic remind you of from when you were younger? Because sometimes we do that when some context reminds us as about the dynamic in the past. We tend to bring all of those emotions into that context as well, the projection, all that good stuff. So it's good to know whether it has a link by association to somewhere else, or this is about the coupledom right now, here in time, right? And then the
Mm-hmm.
last but not least, who are you afraid of becoming in this moment? This is
Mm-hmm.
a good one, right?
Yeah.
So, what are you leaving behind to be fully present right now? Is it
Mm-hmm.
fear? Is it shame? Is it blame? This is wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Now, on that note, so we covered February 15th, but I
Done.
want to really talk about why. So, we talked about why the rituals matter. It's like building muscles. You can't just do something and then be done, and then 20 something years. For me, it will be 24 years this year.
Wonderful.
It's really interesting for us being in long-term relationships. We know how much of a hard work it is.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find very valuable about Love Every Day is you are offering people where to put their efforts. And that's important. You know how many couples we see, they're exhausted, but we work really hard. Why don't we
Right.
get anywhere, right? Because you put your effort somewhere that doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Or what, or I just was working on this week with somebody. I feel like I'm trying so hard, but I'm trying really hard, and what my partner is saying is, don't try hard over there, try hard over here. We do, like, we come, we have this idea of like, but this is what I should be doing to love you, and our partner is saying, actually, that's not what it is. What I would love, what I would like. I think it's why the love languages book, took off and became such a
Big hit.
classic, is that, yeah, it gives us a way of understanding that right, I'm exhausting myself to show you love, but my partner is saying, no, don't. It's actually kind of a burden for me when you exhaust, when I see you cook a 5-course meal and you've exhausted yourself and you're like, well, look, I'm loving you, I'm loving you, I'm loving you. And what your partner is saying, actually, what I would prefer is for you to not exhaust yourself with a 5-course meal and just whatever, spend some time together. So I think that you're right, that it's about kind of, it's not just putting in the energy, but it's being intentional and collaborative about where we're putting in energy. Well, how do you see that in your work?
Well, in the research, one of the things that we found was the qualities of loving behavior is different than anything else. Five languages of love is amazing because, in a very straightforward way, immediately tells you the difference between golden rule and platinum rule. Golden rule is when many of us grew up with, do to others as you want to be done to you.
Yeah.
Platinum rule rules in relationships because it actually invites us to treat others the way they want to be treated. So that
Mhm.
is one piece, right?
Yeah.
But with the emergent love research, what we found was there are certain qualities into loving behavior, like being tender, making the other person feel special. So you're not going to do this every day with your, like, even best friend,
Mhm.
So you're doing it with somebody that you're actually building that couple them with. And by
Mhm.
the way, for people who are listening, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alexandra, I don't think you wrote this for heterosexual and monogamous and like a married couple. When I read it, I feel like I see that you're also shaking your head. I felt like, oh, this is applicable to any kind of
Yeah.
sexual and relational orientations,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, there are times when I do name, and I'd be curious how you address this in your work. There are times where I do name the way that this dynamic plays out for cis hetero couples,
Hmm.
because gender role socialization is so big. It shapes so
Yes.
much that men should, women should, and that,
Hmm.
looks different depending on what culture we're talking about. But gender has such strong, that's what the research has shown, is that in no domain do gender roles play out as rigidly and narrowly as they do around dating and sex and relationship. So I think in that way, cis hetero couples are kind of most at risk of getting themselves into trouble because the relationship just so perfectly mirrors patriarchal socialization. So it's so easy. I think queer couples sometimes have just that little bit of liberation because they by nature cannot map so perfectly onto heterosexual
Hmm.
norms. And so there are times where I do need to pull forward how gender roles can really like crunch a couple's intimacy down because they're getting polarized around gender stuff. So there are times where I'll say, if you're a cis hetero, this may be particularly hard for you to see and
Hmm.
notice. But no, the intention is that anybody, can and should be working with it. But what do you do? How do you,
That's wonderful.
because I know that you also strive to be really inclusive in your work, while also sometimes needing to pull forward, the power of gender roles. How do you reckon with
Yeah.
that in your work?
Well, some of the gender roles that we found helpful is when the couple come together and actually, regardless of the um, sexual orientation, regardless of their gender orientation, even gender
Mhm.
preferences. What we found was when people in any kind of relationship, when I say from bedroom to boardroom often, you just need to be clear that within that context, right, what works for those two people. And it
Mm,
doesn't really matter what is what. But
Right.
also what we found was sometimes gender roles are very helpful because they know it, they make clear boundaries for people, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, if we are planning a dinner at our home, then I'm going to be the one as the, cis heteronormative woman, that everybody comes home, and afterwards, when they send a thank you card for that dinner table, usually they address the woman more than man.
Mhm.
Thank you for your hospitality, for your na. So in those situations, it will be helpful that for somebody to take charge of a task or
Yes.
certain things. So it's not necessarily gender role, but I'm with you that the social construct is so strong. In fact, in her new book, Dr. Emily Nagoski calls it gender mirage in Come Together.
Yeah.
She calls it gender mirage that, as soon as you're born, you're like, oh, cute, it's a girl.
Uh-huh.
It comes with a whole baggage of
Uh-huh.
everything that needs to
Yeah.
be done, needs to, just borders and boundaries around it.
Yeah.
So I feel
Yeah.
like that's really interesting that we're talking about that.
Uh-huh.
Now, on
But
that note,
I think I'm sorry, I
please,
just want to jump in and just say
please.
that I think that sometimes we get so like this question in today's entry in Love Every Day, like, who are you afraid of becoming? I think there are
Mhm,
times when a couple will exhaust themselves trying to
mhm.
avoid creating a division of labor,
Yeah,
because God forbid that division of labor in any way, shape, or form replicates patriarchy, and then I'm afraid I'm becoming every exhausted woman in my family. I'm afraid of my male partner becoming every entitled,
so
put his
true.
feet up, so I think there are ways that then we can kind of exhaust ourselves being like, well, no, every day we have to negotiate who's making the dinner and who's cleaning up the dinner, and that's exhausting. So I think that you're right there. Every
Mhm.
couple does. I think that one of the rituals of relationship is creating divisions of labor so that there's not every single day 84 points of negotiation, because that's exhausting. It's not particularly erotic to be negotiating who's doing what. And so
Exactly.
sometimes, yeah, I notice that, right, I do everybody a favor when I run the kitchen, because it's actually harder on everybody for me to let go and let somebody else run what feels very much like my kitchen. Like, just, I don't care that I look like every woman in my family ever. It's, easier for me to be in this
Mhm.
space than to try to hand it off and let go and walk away.
Right. Exactly. So if we actually build on that, right? If we build on that, so in any situation, if somebody says, I've got this, then immediately the other person assumes the role of helper. So what can
Mm,
I do? How can
yeah,
I do this? But when two people, without declaring that somebody is in charge, get themselves into a situation, that's when I find very tricky. And going back to also rituals, right? So let's talk about that, because one of the rituals that I introduce in Love by Design,
yeah.
I actually broke it down with annual rituals, weekly, monthly, daily,
Mhm.
all that. And
Yep, yep.
for the daily, absolutely love every day. I think this is absolutely amazing. But I wonder, because one of the things that you said, like a chores, who is going to cook, who is going to do, there are certain things that we do. The house needs operation, right? So
Yep.
for that, I assign couples to admin meeting once a week. Everybody knows what they're doing, and they even bring other people who live with them, whoever
Sure.
that is involved in that family system, including children. So I wonder how you see it. So beyond the daily routine that
Yep.
couples have, actually start with the daily. So
Mhm.
beyond doing this as a reflection, as something to do together, the journal and
Yeah.
conversation starters that you have here. But I wonder what else you think is important on a daily basis.
Daily ritual. I really like an admin meeting, because I think what I love about that is by pulling out and holding time and space for a couple admin meeting, it then isn't seeping into every other space, like, it's
Mhm.
just, Todd and I call it work at the table. We do our weekly, like, work at the table, where we just it's calendaring, it's whatever items that it's usually, he's got 5 items built up that I haven't attended to, because when I ask him to do something, it's like done before I get to the end of my
Mhm.
sentence. But when it goes the other way, he knows he's got to kind of like stack them up, give them to me in a structured way, because otherwise I don't treat them with the same, you know, re- regard and care that he treats the things that I need from him. That's part of the tax he pays for loving me is that I don't,
Mhm.
I have a very different timeline. But I think in terms of daily rituals, um, I really, I lean a lot on what the Gottmans have found, and I know
Mhm.
one of their really important daily rituals is like the sort of hellos and goodbyes, like being just intentional about, about the just the parting, whether it's parting in the morning. I know that this kind of got all turned upside down in the pandemic and with work from home,
Of
but just
course.
having those ways of kind of stepping apart and coming back together, and sometimes those reunions, not so much a daily reunion, but certainly when there's been work travel, I think those, like that re-entry process can be so bumpy for
Mhm.
couples. And so having some intentionality about how do we come back together
Mhm.
after there's been space. And one person might want to just like hop right back in and get caught up, and the other person might need to kind of ease back in. And so talking about how do we honor our differing needs around reconnecting, and then figuring out, often by trial and error, what's going to work for both.
Absolutely, absolutely. So on the daily rituals, this hello and goodbye is very
Yeah.
interesting because I think what Gottmans did, they actually legitimized the field of couples therapy. With the research, this is not some hokey pokey thing that we do. There are some patterns that we see, and I'm so grateful to them because uh, they were the pioneers to show us that there's a field to be researched. That's
Yeah.
why, the research, right? So, hello and goodbye, I learned from my parents because they always, even if they had keys, they would never use their keys when they knew somebody was at home. Yeah, they would
I
always ring
love
the bell.
it.
Yeah,
I love it. Because you're right. When you open the door for somebody, like you're right there, that you
you
are
greet them.
greeting and being greeted.
Yes. And to
That's great.
clarify that also, right? And then later on, I actually learned it when I was teaching business, funny enough, because, the hello, the impression, the first impression is very important. And also when you say goodbye to somebody is this like sealing the conversation and like,
Yeah.
whatever space that you share. But for couples, I'm amazed at how many couples don't even say hello to each other.
Yes. That's
Don't
right.
even,
Don't
don't
look up.
even
Don't look up when the other comes in the room.
Exactly. So it's really, isn't that interesting though? Because if you really stop seeing each other, that's
Mm.
it, just noticing each other, what does that do?
Okay, that is so, I mean, y'all, if you take nothing away from this conversation, like that is such a big invitation, because that's attachment behavior, isn't it? Like, ah, I noticed
Hmm.
you, like I noticed your presence, like just that. It makes me think about years ago, Toni Morrison was on Oprah Winfrey's show, and she talked about being a mother, and she said,
Right.
when my kids were little and they would come in the room, I would look them up and down and see if their pants were clean and make sure their hair had been done, and there was no
Sure.
schmutz on their face. And then I had this moment where I realized that's not what they want. When they come in the room, they're
Hmm.
looking at me to see if my face lights up. And so she challenged me. I get chills even saying it. It's like
And
been
me too.
years ago. It's like, does your face light up? Does your face light up when your kids walk in the room? And so what you're saying, Dr. Sarah, is, does your face light up when your partner walks in the room? And that your parents made sure that happened by greeting each other at the door. But we all can make sure
Hmm.
that happens by looking up from our phone, by when
Hmm.
we come in, if we're the one coming into the home, looking up, whatever that is, to just, just orient, even for a few moments, like, ah,
Hmm.
you're here and I'm
Hmm.
here.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting because going back to becoming a little bit nerdy, like in social psychologies, we have a principle of reciprocity of liking. So, meaning that if
Yes.
I feel like you notice me, I notice you. If I feel like, I light up for you, you light up for me. And many years pass, if you can really keep those, they will go a long, long way, right?
Hmm.
Because one thing that goes is I start doubting if you care about me. I
Yes,
start doubting that if you love me anymore, and then I stop loving you. So that is one of the tensions that we see. So with this little ritual every
that's right.
day,
That's right.
we
That's
can
right.
do a lot.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one. Oh, please. Is it Todd?
No, I think it's, I'm in a hotel. I think it might be housekeeping, but they're gone. Um,
Oh.
yeah, I love that. Okay, I love that ritual. This is kind of taking the micro and extending it, but that's what we do. when I don't feel acknowledged, like you're sort of saying, I don't feel acknowledged, I don't feel loved, I behave less lovingly, it creates distance. And in that distance is everything from conflict to infidelity, right? Every infidelity story I've ever heard in my 25 years of practice is like, we lost each other, which does not mean the person who's been cheated on, does not mean it's their fault. This is not blaming the victim, but it is like there becomes so much space that disengagement is often the first step towards a sequelae that can lead to some really destructive places.
Exactly. And if I again may build up on that,
Yeah.
one thing that again, so it looks like a sales pitch, but people, this is not a sales pitch. This is really, good book. Get it. It's a The reason is it's important is because you pay attention to each person and the space between, and that's important. Why is it important? Because look, as you are talking about it, if you stop looking at yourself, into me I see, then I can't really invite you into me you see.
Yeah.
So as the years go by, you know what matters to you, what makes you feel like you're noticed, you're special, you're not replaceable,
Mm.
at least easily, right?
Hmm.
And you
Hmm.
have that seed of connection with each other, then in that way we can actually grow the relationships and make sure that it has a chance
Yeah.
in years
Yeah.
to come, right? So one of the rituals that we talked about was hello and goodbye.
Yeah.
The other one that I use, and I would love to hear what you think, is I tell people to get together, hopefully for dinner every night, because everybody eats dinner, hopefully. And if not, if some people have different regiments or classes or whatnot with kids, just come together for 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And this is not about dumping on each other. I call it oi and joy sharing. So I just share with you,
Oh,
right?
so Jewish. The oi
Yeah,
and the joy.
yeah. Actually, one of my Jewish clients used the term first, and
So
then I acquired it. I thought, "Oh,
I
that's
love
a very
I
good
love the
thing."
little. I have a number of those things too that when I say them, like I know that I heard it from a client share. I think that's such a lovely way to take in new ideas and little kind of language quirks like that. Okay, so the oi and the joy. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, like talking about globalization, bringing the wisdom, right?
Yeah.
So this lovely client of mine used oi and joy, and joy is something that brought smile to my face. It could be anything. It could be good coffee, whatever. I don't care. Joy, right? And then the other one is oi, something that was heavy for me.
Yeah.
Again, it could be anything, and it's not about the partner necessarily, but it's like that, right?
Mhm.
So that's oi and joy that I give to my clients. That is one of the things that I needed them to do every day. How
Yeah.
about you?
I agree. I think that one is huge. I love, well, I love a little, I think that, and I think that 10 minutes is really doable. And it's so, I think about families with, a lot of like families that couples I work with who are in the years of raising children.
Mhm.
I think especially my clients tend to skew a bit more privileged, and so those family systems, especially, well, I think every family system is strained by either long working hours or multiple working
Yes.
hours or caregiving for multiple generations, or they are strained by like a ton of tutoring, travel this, lessons this. So there's a lot of parents kind of going in different directions.
Mhm.
And while all that is important, I know that then when the couple is becoming empty nesters, it's like, wait, who am I and who are you and who
Mhm.
are we? And everyone is kind of so in their roles. And so that 10-minute touch point, an oi and a joy or a walk. I really love couples. I'm very into couples walking together. I think there's something really powerful about bodies in motion, shoulder to shoulder, looking in the same direction. I think there's like some symbolism there. I think it can kind of counteract that stuckness. I think anything that counteracts, we flop on the couch with our phones in our hand. So anything that can sort of break up that way of spending time together, I'm here for. So I like.
That's amazing. Yeah. And the walking also creates the bilateral stimulation of the brain that creates a better tolerance for whatever sensitivity that might come up, right? So we
Yes. Yeah. So
regulate
having
better.
difficult, so having difficult I really like couples have, I mean, I know that that's what Todd and I, when we're in a difficult conversation, we will oftentimes try to have that
Wow.
on a walk because of that, right? I think for me, especially, my nervous system can be prone to like I can shut down and pull away,
Mm.
and I know I've got a much wider zone of tolerance when we're walking and having a difficult conversation because I'm counteracting that feeling of stuckness.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. So if we want to bring everything together, one was the daily check-ins
Yep.
of the self-reflection, self-awareness questions that you are offering in your book, and also the oi and joy that people can share with each other. 10 minutes is not too much to ask, and the
Mhm.
hello and goodbye.
Those are wonderful. Those are wonderful daily rituals. Yeah, and I think also couples need to give each other slack because you also, I know in Love by Design, you're offering couples the weekly and the monthly and the
Mhm.
annually. So knowing that not every day has to be or is going to be perfect, and that there can be other ones. Can you just give a
Mhm.
little suggestion of what you also like on those broader timelines, like in terms of something that's monthly or something that's annual? What do you like for couples for those bigger horizons?
Sure. So the daily has some rituals, and including physical touch that I talk about a
Mm,
lot because
yeah,
we can intellectually connect but physically disconnect. So that's one, the daily. The weekly, I have one thing that I call couples jar walk. So couples walk. Basically, instead of talking about the relationship and issues and whatnot all the time, which is really exhausting and makes it really pollutes the relationship, I ask people to have a bunch of post something, write down whatever they want to talk about, put it in a jar, go for a daily walk if their bodily ability allows. So that's one of the weekly
yeah.
rituals.
Hmm.
And for the monthly, I want them to have a quick check-in with each other. What is working, what is not working,
Yeah,
and what do I want more of? And so the allocation of resources, money, time, attention, and energy,
yeah,
where are we putting them? And for the annual, I want them to really take a pulse of the relationship,
yeah,
360-degree review with the relationship panoramic inventory, the validated test that you're familiar with. So I really want them to do that, to see where to put their efforts, where are the cracks shaping, what is
yeah.
it that we're doing great at. So, to keep us on check. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what I love so much about your work is that your readers and your followers can really trust that you have built this guidance from the science, not just the science that we've had as a field, but also your own science. Like you
Mhm.
are in that river of excellent relationship researchers that we were mentioning John Gottman
Thank you.
before, and then have kind of taken and forwarded all of that good information that we have. So when a reader is working with Love by Design, they know that your like very tangible, very practical recommendations for couples are founded in what we know works. It's not You're not pulling it, out of thin air.
Yeah.
You have built these six pillars, and then all of the practices that go along with those six pillars. You have built those from the science, which I think is so reassuring and gives couples such a wonderful, clear direction to go.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my friend, we're all in the business of creating world peace, one relationship at a time.
We are. We are.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me while being on the road and the housekeeping knocking on your doors.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. Thank you so, so much. Thank you for being here and safe travels, my friend. And
Yeah.
I'll speak with you soon, I hope. Thank you for
So
being here.
wonderful. So wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you so much.